like we would be remiss if we didn't at least talk about the national championship, or I guess maybe at least the women's national championship, whether y'all want to talk about the men's or not. Uh,
There
so
was a what?
even though Mark and I are the only real basketball fans in the group, and Mark forsook us for playing basketball tonight instead of talking about it. So he left me alone to cover the national championship with a bunch of football guys.
I mean, I'm just as comfortable to roast Mark for an hour and a half. I mean, it's your call.
And I just refuse to be psyoped into talking about even recognizing women's basketball. This is my big stand of the week. I refuse to do it.
I worked for women's teams all through college, so it's still something that I am at least a little bit familiar with and keep some track of. But also, that was where most of the controversy came from as far as the NCAA tournament was concerned. The men's side of things was pretty, it was wild and crazy, and first time ever since they started doing seeding that you didn't have a number one seed make the Elite Eight. You had a 4, 2 5s, and a 9 in the Final Four, and then UConn just absolutely drubbed everybody. Their closest game through the entire tournament was 12 points in the Final Four, and the only reason it was as close as 12 points was because they pulled everybody out for the last minute and a half because they were winning by so much. And who was it? Miami was able to pull within 12 playing against the end of the bench. So it was a impressive tournament. It was not what you usually expect for an NCAA tournament, but it was at least entertaining, if nothing else. A lot of really good games, a lot of exciting finishes and stuff for just a pure basketball fan who my team got put out in the opening round, like not even round one, like in the qualifying round. So we never even got to make it to the Mississippi State didn't even get to play in the field of 64. I had no rooting interest at all other than watching my bracket get blown up day one. So at that point, it was just like, I'm all for whatever is the most chaotic and the most insane. And that is definitely what this tournament was. I'm sure Vegas did really well and literally nobody else on the planet.
Yeah. I didn't watch any more basketball after our last episode. I'd be lying if I said that I didn't come away with a little bit more knowledge of the game, maybe even a little more respect for it. But it's baseball season now. I can't do this dual shit. Like, I'll just catch up with the scores at the end. And it sounded like the national championship in basketball tried to copy the national championship of this year's football by pulling starters and just blowing out an absolutely inferior team. So glad to see that we started something.
San Diego State had a really good team. They never should have made it that far, and if it hadn't been for other upsets along the way, they probably wouldn't have. But that's why they play the games, I guess.
So Justin, but you're a little more keyed in on the college basketball world fandom, whatever. Like, are there any idiots out there saying that San Diego State didn't deserve to be there or didn't have any right to be in the Natty, like they were saying about TCU, or does that not exist because there is such a robust tournament behind it?
Because of the way the games kind of fall, like all you have to do is beat the guy in front of you. And like TCU got the benefit of their selection with there only being 4 teams that go to the playoff, and then you've got the championship. So TCU arguably deserved to be in that championship game because they beat the team that was in front of them and they made it to that game. But you're taking it from a field of 4 where were they even one of the top 4? When you're coming in it with a field of 68 and then that opening weekend 64, where literally anything can happen, as we saw with a couple number 2 seeds and a number 1 seed getting taken down in the opening weekend.
Thanks a lot, Purdue.
Yeah, obviously it's a little bit more of a free for all, and it's a little bit more wild, and anything happens or anything goes and anything can happen. So no, nobody's going to be like, well, San Diego State didn't deserve to be there. San Diego State did everything they were supposed to, and they won the games they were supposed to. So it's a little less of a there's not quite the pissing match type of a thing with the men's tournament. I guess the controversy with the women's tournament, for those of you who aren't aware, which would probably be 4 of the 5 of us, Iowa made a Cinderella run to the national championship, carried by a player named Caitlin Clark, who is Mark's newest love interest. He'll be moving to Iowa any day now to pursue.
Have we done a check? Most of the time, athletic Caitlins might have a secret or two.
She appears to be legitimate, but anyway, in
she's not on a beer can yet, so
that's right. In their Elite 8 game, a very heavily contested, very chippy game, she made a play and did the John Cena "You Can't See Me" in the general direction of the opposing team's bench. At the end of the national championship game, one of the players, I can't even remember her name, something, shoot, I'm going to butcher it or just completely miss it, or end up calling her the trans shooter of that Catholic school or the Covenant school in Nashville on accident. So I'm not going to try the name. I want to say it was last name was Reese, but anyway, different kind of shooter. At the end of the game, like for the last 20, 30 seconds, she was chasing Caitlin Clark around the court, pointing to her ring finger and doing the thing, like just chasing her around the court. And people said that was classless, it was tasteless, it was bad sportsmanship. But then they also tried to turn it into it was a racist thing, that it was okay for Caitlin Clark to do that because she's white, but when the black girl from LSU does it, then it's classless and terrible. It's like, no, they're completely different situations. Like I said, go.
I would just say in general, again, without commenting specifically on women's basketball because I refuse to do so, there's nothing more overrated in sports than class. Like, classlessness is what makes sports great. Like hate is better than love. Taunting is better than sportsmanship. Like, so anything that juices up unsportsmanlike conduct, I'm in favor of. So this is the peak of women's basketball.
Without taunting, sportsmanship is meaningless. So if you don't have instances of taunting, then when you do have the person who there's a great display of sportsmanship of some type, then it actually is meaningful because the standard is taunting. But in order for that to be meaningful, the standard needs to be taunting.
Right. 100% agree.
Also, women's basketball is not a sport.
My big
and the crowd goes wild.
Was
the most sports-like thing involved in that whole deal was the fact that she did a John Cena move, because that's sports.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Now business partner with the UFC.
I saw that. Yeah. One of my friends that's an MMA guy is very upset about that. He thinks it's combining something stupid with something real. And I'm like, no, I don't think UFC is stupid. So I'm trying to help.
I am a bit concerned. I know, the head. I didn't realize that he'd been the head of the company that owned the UFC for a while. But Ari Emanuel being the head of
Endeavor
kind of concerns me. As a longtime Dem operative, who Ari Gold was based off of on Entourage. Him being in charge of the most space sport out there, and Dana White is concerning in the long run. But I'm interested to see how this whole thing plays out.
I mean, if it leads to more chicks getting beat up by dudes, then I think it will end up kind of settling itself out.
Shout out Fallon Fox. I just saw one of the weirdest headlines that I've ever seen. Oh man, Bill Romanowski, that's a deep cut.
Hell yeah.
I just saw one of the weirdest headlines that I've ever seen. I'm scrolling through I was going to say Roto World. Now I guess it's NBC Sports Edge. I'm scrolling through their little news blips for the NFL because I've been out of the loop for the last couple of weeks, or last week or so. And I see this headline. The Miami Herald's Barry Jackson reports that the Dolphins are open to trading wide receiver
Tyreek
Cedric
Hill?
Wilson.
Oh.
Like, the Dolphins are open to trading this nobody.
Hot commodity.
Yeah,
Right. But now get this. Cedric Wilson, who finished last season with a 12 for 136 line on 18 targets, is set to have an $8 million cap hit this season. So you're telling me that the Dolphins are open to trading the guy coming off of 12 for 136. That's 12 catches for 136 yards. They're open to trading that guy who has an $8 million cap hit this year. I would imagine that they're open to trading him. That's such an oddly phrased headline. That's like one of the Dolphins front office people texted the reporter, Barry Jackson, and said, "Hey, Barry, would you do us a favor and let the NFL know that we're open to trading this guy because we'd really rather not just cut him? I'm sure cutting him doesn't make a lot of money for them. They probably has like a lot of dead money or something. So if they cut him, then it would cost them more than trading him. So they really would like to trade him."
Hang on, we're going to officially transition over into NFL talk. There we go.
Oh yeah.
Change of it.
I just
We started off talking about Cedric Wilson, so we're off to a good start.
can only go down from here.
There have been some off-season moves over the last few weeks that, and Mark and I did not cover any NFL on the couple shows we did. We exclusively did NCAA tournaments. So anything you have to say about any of the off-season moves that have happened will be news to this show because we did not talk about it.
Well, fuck it, I'll start it. It's the first time in a long time that the Falcons have actually attempted to do football-minded things involving talent acquisition. I don't know who the fuck is running my team. They've been taken over by somebody with a little acumen, or at least just a good dartboard where they're just throwing random shots out there. But for the first time in a long time, I'm actually, dare I say, excited to watch at least the defense. I have no idea what the offense is going to look like, but yeah, unironically, I'm actually. I don't know the feeling. It's like this happiness that, and the source is the Falcons. I don't know what that is. It's a new thing.
Well, have the Falcons made good moves or have they just not made bad moves?
I'm sure they've made a bad move in there already. They've signed some guys. I'm like, who the fuck is that? And why are we signing this third string defensive tackle that I've never heard for a 1-year deal? Like, do we need to even make that move now, or can we just wait till OTAs and say practice squad's that way, dude? Like, I don't even know why you released that information, but signing Jesse Bates, Calais Campbell, I know what you would say. 15 years in the league, old as shit.
He's still effective.
Yeah,
absolutely. And the year that the Falcons signed Dwight Freeney, we went to the Super Bowl, and he turned around our defensive front. Same thing when we signed Jonathan Abraham, even though Abraham had more tread on the tires coming in. There's something about a veteran foundation that you can put in a locker room around all of this newness that's coming in. You got, all these other players that are all coming in. There's not going to be any level of continuity. And so it just seems like that they're stacking it correctly, where there's at least a possible hope for something over the next 3 seasons with a massive, you can't get any worse than being ranked in the high 20s the last 3 years defensively. So if we can just, if we can just split that in half and be 15th ranked defense, I'm a happy fan. That's how low my expectations are.
Well, particularly if you're Atlanta, like, you have a proven coaching staff that, like, it's weird because, like, the way they value positions is, like, different than the rest of the NFL, right? We're going to put a lot of draft capital into tight end. You're going to have, every position have the option of playing running back, right? Like, it's a really weird sort of mix of skill position players and offense. But Arthur Smith, for whatever else you want to say about the team, like, he has gotten more from that team. They've been on consistently, I think, the last couple of years, like a top half of the league offense, in spite of having a roster that doesn't really inspire you, particularly last year with Kyle Pitts' production. So you add just a lot of interesting pieces. I know the new defensive coordinator, coming from the Saints, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Which is not a bad coaching tree there on terms of defensive production. Yeah, and then you add just the advantage of being the NFC South, which is just the weirdest division out there.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think the Falcons are like a Super Bowl contender this year, and I'm still curious. Like if you added Lamar Jackson to this Falcons team, like I'd be like, okay, I'm interested. I'm intrigued. I'm still not sold on Ritter.
Me neither.
And Heineke is plucky. Okay, fine. But I think they could be they could be a playoff team.
I think that they'll win the division because it's just that bad. I think everybody selecting the Panthers or Saints, I think, are overlooking the Falcons for obvious reasons. And it's almost like they glanced at Tampa Bay. It was like, oh shit, Tom Brady's not there anymore, and they're blowing it up. Let's just go ahead and let's just check out New Orleans. We don't even need to stop in Atlanta. But I think New Orleans has far more important pieces that are going to be new to the team next year, and still lack of experience. They're going to have to get a new D coordinator or whatever. We plucked 2 players off their defense. I don't see New Orleans gelling that quickly. I think a defense can gel quicker than an offense. So, and I have no expectations for the Panthers, even if they get CJ Stroud or fill in the blank quarterback that they are going to take with the number 1 spot. I don't see them winning the division out of the gate. I just
what do you want the Falcons to do at 8? What are you looking at? What would make you happy?
If Jalen Carter is there, you get him, no questions asked. If he's already in Seattle or somewhere else, again, I don't know why. Nolan Smith, he's there. And that's not just because
but the Falcons don't do that, though.
I know. But the Falcons
also avoid Georgia players like the plague.
But the Falcons also don't do what they did so far this year in free agency. So technically we have the Saints front office running the Atlanta Falcons. And the Saints love taking a Georgia player here and there. So if it were me, it would be Jalen Carter, no questions asked if he's there. If he's not, then you get whoever the best edge rusher is, because I think you can stack cornerbacks in later rounds. I think that you prioritize that front 7 rush, because that, to me, that's a defensive skill player in my mind. Secondary, they're all over the place. You can get somebody in there. I'm not so sold on the Oregon cornerback Christian, whatever, that I would waste a top 10 pick on him. Not that he's bad. I just think that you could really settle your front 7 down if you address that with the 8th pick.
Yeah, I had Tyree Wilson there in a mock draft earlier today.
Mm-hmm.
But Buck, how do you feel about the Raiders right now?
I have not been paying super close attention because, well, I guess I have a little bit more than the average person, but I don't know enough about those starting QBs or the I don't know that they're starting, but the like Richardson and I keep hearing Will Levis, Hooker, all of these guys. But I have heard, you referenced this in our group chat earlier, that Josh McDaniels likes Richardson. But of course, as with all of these quarterbacks, when I look on Twitter regarding him, I hear, half the people, oh, he's terrible. And half the people like, oh, I love him. He'd be the best pick. So I don't know what to think because I didn't watch those guys.
I would be excited if the Raiders got Richardson. I don't think Josh McDaniels does, though. I think McDaniels is going to end up like the fact that the quarterback room right now is Jimmy Garoppolo and now Brian Hoyer is this week is like extremely on brand. Like it's just like a classic. Like, okay, we're just going to kick out all the players that I inherited. Yeah, we're just going to stack them full of people from Foxborough, and we're going to build that Patriots culture. And it's just like I'm so tired of just seeing the same exact strategy that just keep getting tried no matter how much it fails everywhere else.
Mm-hmm. I know. I don't like that either. And I did think it's possible once we got Jimmy Garoppolo that they're not going to draft a QB at 7. And there's some kind of defensive player that a lot of Raiders fans are saying to get someone on the defensive line. But I don't know. We'll see.
But probably not racing Jalen Carter. It might be a little too close.
Racing Jalen?
Yeah.
See, I don't even know.
I'd like to see, Buck. Do you want to see the Raiders go for a quarterback that you're...
Yes. Yeah, I don't know enough about the consensus that I have picked up on. A lot of people like this Will Levis guy. Without getting into a muddy territory on a live stream, I have heard that you have to be extremely smart, high IQ to understand Josh McDaniels' offense. So let that speak for itself. That's all I know. I've heard people compare him to Josh Allen, who is one of my favorite quarterbacks to watch, but it's not like you just can get a Josh Allen every draft and there it is. Otherwise, all the teams would be great. We'll see. Yeah, I think Jimmy Garoppolo gets hurt every season. So if we were to draft a QB and then let him sit behind Garoppolo until week 10 or whatever when he gets hurt and then let that guy start, I could see that being something that's interesting for Raiders fans.
Well, thank you for Mac Hollins. I hope he continues doing well next season. I mean, I think you guys kind of need a tight end and maybe another receiver, if I'm not mistaken.
We got 2 tight ends. Let me think of who they are. I recognized both of their names. See, I've been so out of after
Austin
Hooper, yes.
Yeah.
There's another one behind him.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then another receiver that's
Jacoby Myers.
That's right. Yeah, that's the guy. So when we got him, a lot of Raider fans were happy because he's already won a game for us. He threw to Chandler Jones, and that was a good move for us. But yeah, that's him. So I suppose, I will say I didn't hate getting rid of Darren Waller, because most of last year I hated on Darren Waller, especially after we got blanked by New Orleans minutes after, it seemed like maybe an hour or two. Darren Waller drops his new single on Twitter. And I thought, what either tone deaf ass, or he's doing that, trolling. And then there's been sports writers that I follow say that earlier in the year when Carr and Adams called out unnamed players in the locker room for not trying hard, that they were speaking of Darren Waller.
Tone deaf on the field, auto-tuned in the studio. That's how you get around
that. Yeah. And I noticed Max Crosby decided to have his wedding on the same day that Darren Waller had his. And there were a lot of players having fun at Max Crosby's wedding on the videos I saw, and nothing at Waller's.
Yeah.
Drama.
Well, and it works out well because Jacoby Myers is probably a better blocker than Darren Waller anyway.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Well, Waller went to Georgia Tech, so I wouldn't have put that high stock in anyway. No.
But just funny though, it's a team that gave up what 6 double-digit leads in the second half.
Yeah.
And yet it's the offseason, we're just going to replace all of our offensive players.
Yep.
With our guys.
Strange.
But it's interesting. Is that's one of the dynamics here is that there's so many teams that you can identify should obviously be drafting quarterbacks, right? There's some that are so obviously the Panthers are going to. The Texans, I assume, are going to it too. There's people trying to convince you that they might not. They might try to get clever. I don't think that's going to happen. But then you have the Colts, and you have the Raiders, and you have the Titans. You have the Vikings, even to a certain extent. You have the Lions and the Seahawks that are kind of in that. Well, when's the next time these teams are going to be picking the top 10? Do they really want to stick with the guys they have right now? There's 6 or 7 teams. I mean, you could throw in the Commanders, but that's a different thing in its own right because new owner coming in. There's so many teams that you could seriously have this conversation, and some of them desperately so. It's they need a quarterback to build on, but then it's just trying to find fits for these sort of people with the Will Levis question, because Levis is a weird dude because he's someone who you have some people have him as a second to 4th round pick. I mean, it is kind of in that Josh Allen thing where Josh Allen before the draft was just completely dismissed by anyone that was a serious film guy in the draft community. Basically had to say okay, this guy's traits Ben Roethlisberger, he can improve. You're really kind of building on the player improving. And yet here you have a guy that's 24 years old, had multiple NFL quarterbacks, multiple NFL coaches. And so it's who's going to be the team? It's you could very easily see a situation. You get 4 straight quarterbacks to start, or do you get a situation where Richardson's questions kind of move that back a little bit, and then you have Daniel Jeremiah of NFL.com. He's one of the better connected draft guys. Like they've got them like Levis going like this second half of the first round now. You've got Hendon Hooker. Some teams saying, oh, they prefer Hendon Hooker over Will Levis, which considering like you're already missing a year on a guy that's already old coming from a gimmicky offense, that just makes no sense to me at all either. But it's like a really weird, like where the quarterbacks fall, and they could either be like again top 4, it could be spread out. Like how that goes is going to end up completely shaping this entire draft. And like I just have no idea. Like some of the GMs here, like I have no faith in Bullard as a decision maker in Indianapolis. I have no faith in the Raiders team right now. Like I think these are teams that are going to be perfectly fine, like thinking they can outsmart the game, punting the position yet again, and like how that ends up shaking things up. Like it's gonna be very fun.
I think that either the Titans are going to be trading up to like 3 with the Cardinals, or the Titans are going to be trading for Trey Lance.
Yeah.
I think one of those two outcomes is just guaranteed, because I don't see the Carthon, the new guy, the guy that came over from San Francisco. I don't see him coming and being in the position that they're in right now and just rolling with Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah.
In his last year of his deal. That's not the move of a guy starting as his first job as a GM, really wants to put his stamp. And at the same time, you also have Vrabel, who I don't think he's on the hot seat right now, but I think if they had a really bad season, I think he probably would be.
And
Son of
also,
a bitch.
like,
that means that we're probably going to get Tannehill then.
You might, yeah. Arthur Smith, yeah.
And also, I think there's few players like who visibly hate a player more than Mike Vrabel hates like Malik Willis. And it's interesting too. So like you look at that team, it's always interesting to see like what are like the back end of the quarterback depth chart moves. Like before the Raiders, like I thought the Raiders, like I was convincing myself, okay, maybe the Raiders really are going to fall in love with like Al Davis would love Anthony Richardson. Like it'd be sexy as hell to see Anthony Richardson in black and silver and just like him going out there and doing what Terrell Pryor was supposed to do, right? Like that'd be sexy as hell. And then the Raiders hadn't really made any move at quarterback besides Garoppolo. And like then when they signed Hoyer, it's like okay, like they're totally going to outthink it, and like they're going to get like they're going to get Tanner, the Purdue quarterback or something to coach them all up, just because Jimmy McDaniels needs his guy that he's going to groom, right? But like the Titans, they haven't picked up any single quarterback. Like you've got Tannehill. They let Josh Dobbs go.
I was just going to ask, did they?
Yeah. So Dobbs, who had that very interesting 2-game run to the end last year, like coming off of, like no practice time, they let him leave the building. You have Malik Willis, who like Vrabel wants to fire, and so like there's where are they going to do now? Like so obviously they're going to add a quarterback somewhere. And the Lance move, if I was a Titans, like that would be, I mean, you could probably get them for the cost of moving up at this point. Because it's clear another coach that seems to absolutely hate playing on his roster. I think Kyle Shanahan, he seems quite tired with the Lance experiment at this point. You just him and Lynch both, like they were not very much kind of in the boosting confidence mode of Trey Lance when they were at the owners' meetings. I would love to see the Titans kind of make that move there. It would definitely some good dots that connect.
I just looked at the 49ers draft capital. Their first pick is the 99th pick. Yeah. It's a comp pick in the 3rd round. And they have 11 draft picks. So they have 3 third-round comp picks, 2 fifths, a 5th-round comp pick, a 6th-round comp pick, and then 2 7ths and 2 7th-round comp picks. So I wonder if you could get like... Obviously, they will
have no problem filling in the special team squads.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, their starting quarterback next year was what was it?
Mr. Irrelevant.
Yeah, that word.
Brock Purdy and Sam Darnold.
So
and apparently,
I guarantee you, they're sitting there going, "We can do it again."
Sam Darnold and Trey Lance are going to be splitting 1st-round reps in the offseason. It's weird how much. That makes me wonder if there was all the fire coming up into the draft of with the 49ers that everyone was like, oh, they're going to take what's his name? Mac Jones.
Yeah.
And then like at the last minute, suddenly it shifted and they took Trey Lance. And it's always seemed like Shanahan doesn't like Trey Lance. Like this was a pick that was forced on him. And so I wonder if that guy, Ram Carthon, like I wonder if he was a Trey Lance guy. And so then he would want to go get his guy. I feel like the Titans could probably, I don't think there's any way that the 49ers could ask for the Titans' first round pick for him. So you'd be looking at probably the Titans have their second round pick as pick 41. And for the 49ers, that would be a pretty good deal. You've still got two, perfectly fine quarterbacks in Brock Purdy and Sam Darnold, especially for the most quarterback friendly system in the world. And yeah, that just seems like a match made in heaven. It seems too easy to me.
It also says a lot about like just how weak the NFC is right now, because it's interesting. So you think about like what these teams should do, like whether they're like their conference should matter a lot, like which quarterback you pick, right? Like if I'm the Houston Texans, I'm taking Anthony Richardson just because like, if you're going to compete in like the AFC, like you need to have an alpha candidate quarterback. You can't simply have a competent quarterback. Whereas like the Panthers, like CJ Stroud could hit like year one and immediately like look like the third best quarterback in the conference without a whole lot of work. Like the 49ers right now are the favorites to win the NFC Championship at plus 375. The Eagles are just behind them at plus 385. Best of all, though, you can get 66-1 odds Sam Darnold comeback player of the year. And so I've hit my legal limit on Sam Darnold investment there. Because like
spoken like a true degenerate.
Yeah, you can just see. I've got all sorts of stuff I'm gonna bring up later. But yeah, so that's it's such a weird, like the stark difference between those two conferences right now.
Yeah,
it's really incredible.
So to answer Jay Forte's question, where did Rodgers end up? Didn't he end up with the Jets, or what's going on with that?
He ended up in a crystal shop. He's hawking crystals now. Yeah.
Nothing yet. They're still. It's like he's trying to get all of these receivers signed to the Jets, and then he's still in the background here, not doing anything.
The Jets did sign former Packers backup quarterback Tim O'Boyle today, though. Another one of his bros.
O'Boyle rules.
I wonder if part of the holdup is the Packers want 2023 draft capital for him, and the Jets don't want to give up 2023 draft capital for him. So it's like a staring contest right now going down into the draft. And I think that the Jets are going to win that one, because the last thing that the Packers want is to be stuck with Rodgers and basically paying, what do they have to pay, like some ungodly amount, like $100+ million over the next 2 years for him if he and he probably wouldn't even want to play. So yeah, it would just be. I think that's one that's going to happen right before the draft.
Well, and wasn't there a story that was kind of not really boosted out there, but I caught wind of it, that San Francisco put it out there saying, "Hey, if the Jets can't get a deal done with Green Bay, we're ready to step to the plate and get this thing done. Get Rodgers in San Francisco."
Interesting.
So people were playing around with that. They've got $2 million in cap. So like I'm skeptical if they'll be able to get that one done. Yeah, but the pettiness here is a lot of fun though to see.
Yeah, I mean, but does the cap really matter? Like, there's some teams that just like say, "What is that anyway? We'll take the penalty or whatever." And then there's other teams that
if Rodgers really wanted to be in San Francisco, then he could rework his contract in whatever way necessary to make that happen.
Yeah,
because I'm sure he's at the point in his life now where the money just is a matter of respect for him. So he doesn't actually like. He wants to play somewhere and retain his glory and whatever, just assure his Hall of Fame case or whatever like that. So I'm sure the difference of $20 or $30 million or something would be negligible to him.
And to address Jay Forte's comment there, I get it. That's an in-division rival. Totally understand. But to wish harm against the Jets just seems unnecessary.
Jets are out here catching strays.
I mean, holy shit, dude. Like, they've only had one Super Bowl appearance, and that was Super Bowl III. They didn't make it back after that, I don't believe. So you're talking
cursed franchise.
Yeah. I think they're due for one. I mean, good Lord, dude. The Dolphins had a perfect season since then. Even the Falcons have been to the Super Bowl twice since then. Like, and the Jets, last thing
That's good clarification.
Okay, so you're doubling up.
The pettiness that makes sports great, right?
Yeah.
He's like no, these aren't strays. I am aiming for their hearts,
Yeah.
both of them.
In fact, I have them stacked behind each other so that I, no matter what, catch them both. All right. Well, then in that case, carry on. But no, I would like. I'm not an AFC fan. My team's not over there, but it wouldn't hurt my feelings to see the Jets because they're so close. It seems like they have a lot of things moving in the right direction. They're just a quarterback away. Brett Favre was never really able to do what they thought he was going to do there. And then you have Sanchez. They make it to the AFC Championship game and then butt fumble, I think, the year after and just completely just dissolves into the abyss of anything even resembling a football team. While across the sidelines in your same stadium, you have Daniel Jones looking like Michael Vick last year. It's like I would kind of like to see the Jets at least put together something that looks like a winning football team for once.
The team whose best quarterback since Chad Pennington was Ryan Fitzpatrick.
What is it with New York teams and not being able to get their shit sorted when it comes to stadiums? Because you've got the Jets and the Giants that are sharing a stadium. Then in MLS, you have NYCFC, who are owned by City Football Group, which is like Manchester City. They're owned by City Football Group, and they play in Yankee Stadium. It's a soccer team that plays in Yankee Stadium. They won MLS Cup 2 years ago.
You know, they're bickering over who's going to get the parking revenue, and they're like, well, it's got to happen here.
Have I told y'all the craziest, just to derail from sports, the craziest union story I've ever encountered in person? When I was working in New Jersey, there was a big sports complex being built. The guy was actually the guy who owned the whole facility and everything was a former Bengals wide receiver, and I can't remember his name for the life of me now. I got to sit in his office with him, talk to him a couple times. Anyway, he was building this big sports complex there, and there were always picketers out front, like picketing the facility being built. So I just walked out one day. I was like, so like, why are y'all always out here? Like, what's going on? And they said, oh, they gave the bid to a non-union shop, so we're out here picketing. I was like, oh, like, did they undercut you on the bid or something? They're like, no, we didn't even bid on it. I was like, whoa, y'all didn't even bid on the job, but you're picketing because it went to a non. I was like, I'm fucking done with y'all. I'm going back inside. This is a waste of time.
Yeah, but they would even say, look, man, I don't even want to be out here, but if I'm not out here, I don't get paid, and they cut me from the union before they double my fees. And
craziest shit I'd ever heard.
Yeah. Welcome to unions.
Anyway, back to sports.
On the subject of the Falcons, I was thinking about this earlier while you were talking, Jim.
Yes.
People have been talking about there's been the age-old debate about running backs in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
And I fall very firmly on the anti-running backs in the first round side of the coin.
Mm-hmm.
But I also don't get bent out of shape about teams drafting running backs in the first round, especially if it's really fun.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like if Bijan Robinson is going to have a surprise early in the first round drafting, which is entirely possible, I think that the Falcons is the most likely place for him. That was my thinking. It feels like an Arthur Smith pick to me. What do you think?
They're just dumb enough to do it. But I think he would be better suited as a Philadelphia Eagle to take Miles Sanders' old spot. Because in all honesty, I think the Falcons are fine at running back with Tyler Algier, Cordero Patterson, and I mean, we just re-signed our fullback. Who does that if you're going to go draft a running back? I don't know. Maybe you don't re-sign the fullback knowing that you're going to throw Bijan back there. But if the Falcons do that, it will be a much more familiar feeling than the one I'm experiencing now. But I totally get what you're saying. And if he were to come here, it would almost feel like them trying to make up for them not drafting Gurley when we had the chance. Because if anybody remembers, St. Louis milked every ounce of usable talent out of him, as you should with a running back. But the Falcons, he would just be stuck in a committee. And I think even if they were to draft him in the top 10, we would misuse him because we already have so many runners on the team. So
and I do wonder, like the Arthur Smith sort of connection there. It's like obviously looking for, but yeah, I think that they've got some competent players already on that roster running. I also think that if picking 8, and let's say that I think with this, it's a very interesting draft because I think that the categories of, say, like top first round and kind of generic first round talent, I think that 8th spot, like particularly if you have 3 or 4 quarterbacks in there, I think like that's kind of where you're getting the end of maybe that sort of blue chip players right there. Like you're gonna have a few cornerbacks on the board that I think are gonna, I prefer Witherspoon over Gonzalez, but like there's gonna be some interesting quarterbacks there. You're gonna have, I think, a few defensive end options at that point. Carter might still be on the board. I think they could be a team that trades back. The team that I think though is interesting, looking at like where could Bijan go earlier than that will cause like analytics Twitter to melt down. You can get 20-1 odds right now on the New England Patriots taking them. And so you think about Bill Belichick, and he's been sitting there. They pick what, 14th. Like if you think about like just the tiers of players, like I have no doubt that Bijan Robinson is going to be the top tier athlete on that board. And they're a team that wants to pound the rock still. They're in this weird situation with Mac Jones. You have a divided locker room with him and Bailey Zappi. I could see that being an option on the table there, where the Patriots, like right now the Vegas odds, the Commanders are the favorites, which I get, but I think it's being a little too cute. Chargers are at plus 500. Cowboys are next. Eagles, the Eagles are too analytic driven. I think at least particularly at 10. Maybe at the end of the first round, but they're next. The Falcons are after that. The Bengals, Bucks, and Saints. I think that I've got money on Bijan with the Falcon, or with the Patriots. I have $5 on the Seahawks, just because it's at 100-1 odds, and like you never know what Pete Carroll can do with that second pick.
Is that anywhere, or is that them drafting anywhere? Okay, anywhere. Yeah. I think 20th is if Bijan's there in the 20th, I'd be very shocked if the Seahawks don't draft him. I don't think he's going to be there. I think he's going to go. I think this phenomenon you're talking about, where the lack of really top end blue chip talent in this draft, the fact that you hit kind of the 8 to 12 range, and then the next, I don't know, 30 players are all kind of, you could kind of make a case for all of them interchangeably. I think that there's going to be a team that is like, Bijan is the clear head and shoulders above the rest of the players that are available. We don't care that it's a first round running back. I mean, Stephen Jones is going to have Jerry locked in a closet to keep him from trading up, because Jerry would 100% trade from 26 up to 8 to draft him.
Come on, man. He's the next Zeke. Come on, let me out.
Right, exactly.
I can see that.
When it's like, and you can kind of lump together like all, like let's say lump together all offensive skill positions outside the quarterback, right? And like the wide receiver class is really weird, right? Because you have the Ohio State wide receiver that I have a feeling is going to be the highest of the
I don't
group.
even want to try to say his name. I feel like I'll get flagged for a racial slur.
But like, he's like a pure slot guy. Like some teams are gonna value that less than others. You've got Quentin Johnson, that looks like an athletic freak, but he can't catch the ball well, which you typically want in a wide receiver. You've got Jordan Addison, who is really light and not particularly fast. You've got Zay Flowers, who to me is pretty sexy right now. I got him at 7-1 odds a couple weeks ago. But it's gonna be a wide receiver class where like there's a lot of issues with all the wide receivers. You're going to have 4 tight ends, possibly. I mean, with first round type grades, and they're going to running back. It's like if you need someone who's going to score points for your team, how much better does Robinson look to a flawed receiver, your first round, a weak wide receiver one class, or a tight end, which historically needs some time to develop. He's going to be pushed up.
And I'm very much part of the analytics Twitter perspective on this, generally speaking, but Bijan Robinson is legitimately like the Andrew Luck of running back prospects. He is. I don't remember who I was listening to recently. A guy did a scouting report on him, and he said, "I was like, I'm not like a. I don't like just do stuff for headlines or like to get clicks or anything. I take this very seriously. But the only player that I can really accurately comp him to is LaDainian Tomlinson. That's like his closest comp. He is the best running back prospect that we've seen. He's better than Zeke. He's probably a better running back prospect than Adrian Peterson, because even Adrian Peterson wasn't that touted of a prospect coming out. He's legitimately going to enter the league as one of the best running backs in the league, no question. It's just that having a really, really good running back doesn't having a running back who puts up a statistically significant season doesn't correlate with winning championships. It just
right.
Someone showed like the best the top rusher on all of the Super Bowl winning teams for the last like 15 years and the level of investment in them. And I think the highest drafted one was like a 4th rounder. It was just, they were all cheap, low investment players that played well because they were just on a good team.
Well, because y'all mentioned like an aversion to taking running backs in the first round, I just pulled up like the last 10 drafts and looked to see like who are the running backs taken in the first round, and there are not a lot, and not a lot, and like aside from Zeke and Saquon Barkley, like Leonard Fournette, eventually with Tampa to some extent, but not consistently. Like that's it. Like and they're the only ones who were taken in the first round really that have been significant. Najee Harris and what was the other one? But they were like low first round. Like they were in the mid 20s. Like
it's kind of like drafting a tight end in the first round too.
Yeah.
Because if you draft a tight end in the first round, you're basically drafting someone else's tight end because they almost always end up hitting on their second contract.
Even with Tomlinson on the Chargers, even when they had Schottenheimer as coach and Drew Brees and then on to Phillip Rivers, they still, didn't do anything championship-wise.
Think of all of the running backs. Go for
Jerome
last
Bettis,
20
I
years.
suppose. But I don't know where he was drafted, and then of course beast mode. But again, that was
Marshawn is basically the only one, and he was on
another
his second
team's
team.
running back, right?
Yeah.
I could see Bijan, whatever, Mr. Mustard. I could see him either as a Texan or as a Lion, because I think the Texans. And it's not even talking about the top 10 pick, because they double up, and the Texans immediately draft again at 12, and the Lions draft at 6 and 18. So I think with the second first-round pick with those two teams, I see him going to one of those two. Texans, to me, seems to make a lot of sense because Dameon Pierce was a breakout star, but it doesn't look like they're going to just have a one-back, that he's going to be the bell cow or whatever the term is for that team. They're so bad they need two good players at every position to even put together a halfway good team. And then the Lions, they just let Jamal Williams, see ya. And so I think if he's there at 18, I don't think Detroit lets him get by.
Having a player like Dameon Pierce or DeAndre Swift does not stand in the way of you taking a player like Bijan Robinson, because it's just he's already better than both of them.
The Lions did just invest a pretty decent contract to David Montgomery, so I think that will probably pause them there.
True.
The Texans, though, is interesting because if you think about the Texans as well, they were coming from a coaching staff from the Shanahan tree, which, while historically is one that elevates undrafted running backs, the big change. There was a great podcast episode on the Athletic football podcast earlier this week where they were talking about how it was going back to the Trey Lance trade that Shanahan made, or the 49ers made. And the idea being that the 49ers made the decision or made the gamble that the league was going to catch up to what Shanahan was doing offensively, and therefore they wanted to add the running ability to the quarterback position to kind of help change the game there. And we've seen like over a third of the NFL now runs some form of the Shanahan offense, and yet they're still being able to dominate with Mr. Irrelevant. And the element that helped the offense evolve with Trey Lance not working was the upgrade they made with Christian McCaffrey this year. And so that could be, so maybe it's a situation where not just the Texans, but some of these more Shanahan-inspired offenses say we need to get our own Christian McCaffrey right now to keep up with with kind of the most cutting edge version of the 49ers offense plan, and Bijan could very well be that piece.
Now, in my defense, I'm completely turned around with the Lions taking Bijan. I'll be honest, at this time of year, I am, unless it's like a big move, like an Aaron Rodgers to whoever, or a player like that, or if they're coming in my division, I'm not paying any attention to what the Vikings are doing or Lions or.
You're not just waiting on bated breath for David Montgomery updates. That's such an exciting player right there.
Just doing Google searches for that name.
I would still say even in spite of that, like that could be the Lions saying, we're not going to take Bijan with our first pick, and we don't think he's going to get to our second pick. And if he was to get to their second pick, then they may just be like, hey, having 3 really good running backs is a great problem to have. Again, I wouldn't build my team that way, but it wouldn't surprise me. I will say that 20 is his floor. I think I would eat my own shoe live on stream here if Pete Carroll passed up Bijan Robinson at 20 overall.
All right, save this one. Save this one, Justin.
I wouldn't even call you a bootlicker. I would just be in awe.
I was looking at a couple
It would be a flip
on
flop
NFL.com that had him in the around 9 to the Bears.
I like Jim's prediction. I didn't know the Texans had 2 first-round picks, the second one being that quick after the first one. I could see them, at least to get fans in the seats, taking a QB and then that running back, of course, that everyone in this state knows. I could see that.
I mean, that would get asses in
forgot
seats.
that the Bears were picking there. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, if you get Bryce
That's
Young,
that hype move. That's that thing that gets the it's the 2 big. It's the big star-studded positions that gets the fans amped up.
Yeah,
it's not about building the team necessarily. It's about filling the seats. And you may be a complete train wreck 4 years from now, but by God, you'll sell a lot of tickets between now and then.
Get the 1A or 1B quarterback, depending on how you split it, and then get the unquestionable best running back. Now, they could both be dead in 3 years because there's no protection for them, but you're going to have asses in seats and jerseys.
Didn't the Texans just re-sign one of their main offensive linemen? Tunzel, yeah, that's what I thought.
Wait, and also if they end up with a Bryce Young, which is I kind of feel like Bryce Young just seems like a D'Amico Ryans player that I could see, like D'Amico Ryans, very very high motor sort of team leader sort of mold. You're also with an Alabama background there. Like Young makes sense, but if you're going to try to protect your 5'10", 190-pound quarterback, a run game would be a good way of doing that as well. So that could also help build that team.
Is that Bryce Young's size?
Yeah, he weighed in at I think he weighed in at 5'10", 205, but he didn't work out. It's it's just it was all water weight.
Hey, that sounds like
my
me.
feeling with Levis was if you're going to, from watching too much Kentucky football this year, because my family and everybody that I work with are a bunch of Kentucky fans. With Levis, if you're going to take Levis, top 5 pick, he's got to have a really, really, really good run game behind him. In the games where Kentucky ran the ball well, he really looked good. And in the games where Kentucky did not run the ball well, he really showed holes. So, if you're going to take a guy like that at that spot, then you've got to back him up with a stud running back to be able to carry the ball and take some pressure off of him.
Oh shit! That means
quarterback. You don't want him playing. You don't want him throwing the ball.
Oh shit! That means we're drafting Will Levis, doesn't it?
This Bears thing, I don't know why, but I just gloss right over that number 9 pick and don't even think about the Bears. But the more I'm thinking about this, the more that just makes so much sense, because they've got, obviously Justin Fields kind of revealed that he's something worth holding on to for a little while. They just got a crap ton of draft capital from the Panthers. So they're kind of in a position where they can almost afford, they've also got a crap load of cap space. They're kind of in a position where they can almost afford to do something like draft a running back in the first round. Or I could see them rationalizing that to themselves, that maybe objectively this isn't the most analytically optimal way of building my team, but we've got the assets to absorb it if he doesn't hit, and then you've got the obvious, like you guys are talking about, the putting butts in seats dynamic, that having Justin Fields and Bijan Robinson and DJ Moore, as that's a very, very good offense, or at least it has the potential to be a very, very good, very, very exciting, interesting offense.
The issue is that they still have a lot of offensive line issues. I mean, they did get Nate Davis, who's a pretty a plus guard. I think I think you'd have Bears fans like wanting to burn down the facility at this point. Like part of it because of the way that the tone has changed, but like their offensive line was just a disaster last year, and so I think that's they're a team that still needs to sort of eat their veggies for a little bit before they can get the sexy picks. But I mean they do have a roster. I mean like they do need skill. They do need more point scores.
The NFC North, I see some parallels, but in very different ways, to the NFC South, where it's up for grabs this year. If the Vikings trade away Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers, obviously, what's up, Eastwood? If Aaron Rodgers isn't in Green Bay, Kirk Cousins isn't in Minnesota, Detroit is still Detroit, and Chicago, just put up 3 wins last year. Like, am I wrong by thinking that the Bears might, even if they make all the right moves, they could end up as the front runner in that division this year? Or are they too far away? And would the Minnesota Vikings be the
front runner in that division? If
really,
because of the way they finished out last season, the momentum they built, if they have just a halfway decent draft and a halfway decent offseason, like if they just don't completely like screw the pooch all the way around, then I feel like Detroit's going to be the front runner, because you don't know what you've got with Green Bay. They were pretty shoddy last year, even with Rodgers. So if they don't have Rodgers, which they're not going to, and you don't know what they're going to do in terms of draft, and you know what they're going to do free agency wise, which is absolutely nothing. So like the Packers are going to be in full on rebuild. The Vikings were the most questionable division winner in the league last year. Like I don't know how they won all the games that they won, but somehow they just kept winning in spite of themselves. I feel like Detroit's going to be the front runner in that division.
Hey Matt, can you ask Eastwood if he agrees with Justin? Does he like the Lions?
Justin? You agree with Justin?
Yeah. Eastwood.
Okay, there you go. You want
to say hi?
That's good enough for me.
He wanted to show you guys Bubba. This is his friend Bubba, who obviously is.
I see a resemblance.
Can you hear us, or is it through your AirPods, Matt?
He can't hear you. No, it's through my AirPods, and I wouldn't be able to do it quick enough. All right, say good night.
Good night.
Nice.
That'll be you soon, though.
Yes, it is. Yes, come May. Luckily, after the draft.
Priorities.
I can continue with my investing all sorts of ridiculous time into draft masturbation between now and then.
Drafturbation.
Yeah. But speaking of the NFC North, my favorite landing spot for Will Levis is the Vikings. Because you have Kirk Cousins on the last year, but best of all though is like I think the only person out there that can sell you on Will Levis, in my opinion, is was his 2021 offensive coordinator who came back, but he overlapped with Kevin O'Connell with the Rams.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where, like, if any team is going, like, that's a team where I could see him falling. I could see a team even trading up for him. I mean, Levis's valuation is rough. Like, it is, you so have to sell yourself on the ability to extract more than what he's put on tape. I mean, his decision making is problematic. His accuracy is problematic. I mean, his team last year sucked. I mean, like, they had an awful offensive line, not a lot of talent around him. But it takes a whole lot of selling in.
What's Matt Waldman's scouting report on him?
I think he's like his 14th quarterback. I mean, it's bad.
Really?
Yeah.
Shit.
I mean, well, the long lineage of Kentucky quarterbacks coming in and tearing it up. Who was that huge dude? The biggest.
Jerry Lorenzen. Rest in peace.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, the New York Giants can probably speak to that. I mean, Kentucky, the powerhouse they are.
Hey, Lorenzen was a beast in arena football before he,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I heard from people who went to games and saw him in person that whatever he was listed at, 310 or whatever, was underselling it. That he was easily bigger than that.
Oh my God, that was the largest human being I've ever seen. And I worked around college basketball teams with dudes who were literally 7'2". Like he was my height and made 4 of me easily. Like I've never seen somebody that big. And his arm, holy fuck!
Yeah.
Like to watch him just sling a ball downfield with absolute like no effort whatsoever, just like launch a missile all the way downfield, like craziness.
I believe he got a Super Bowl ring too.
I think he did.
I think he was on one of the Super Bowl teams with the Giants. It was 7, yeah.
Yeah, they had to use a parking baller to size it, but they got it to him.
I think his fingers were about the size of my wrist.
Man, imagine doing the shocker with that guy.
I think they just call that assault.
Just sodomy.
So what do we think the Cardinals do at 3?
Trade down.
Trade.
I mean, because they have a new, or do they have new front office people yet? I mean, they were kind of cleaning house. Did they ever get rid of their coach, or did he ever come back from Thailand, or what the hell's going on?
They hired Jonathan Gannon, the defensive coordinator from the Eagles.
For the Eagles, that's right.
Yeah, the guy who got undressed in the spotlight in the Super Bowl. The Cardinals hired him.
And their GM comes from the Titans, it comes from the Belichick line via the Titans. So like John Robertson was a Patriots guy in Tennessee. He followed him along.
So they're going to trade Kyler Murray to the. So they're going to trade Kyler Murray to the Patriots to get Mac Jones, is what you're saying.
I mean, you could throw it out there.
That would be the funniest shit I've ever seen in NFL.
Yeah, but I mean, their team is so bad.
Belichick.
Yeah.
Bill Belichick would probably drown Tyler Murray. Like he would put him in a burlap sack with a rock in the bottom and throw him in.
Sorry, he had rabies. That's what you do with that kind of thing, right?
They'd have some Boston Mafia guys take care of it. Deal with this.
Oh man.
But I think the Cardinals are definitely going to be the go-to trading spot. But that presumes though that someone wants one of those quarterbacks. So it kind of assumes on. Are people as excited about Anthony Richardson in the league? I have a feeling they probably are, but like if you assume that Stroud and Young go top 2, who trades up there? I mean, to me, like if the Colts don't trade up to 3, then like are they going to take a guy at all? I mean, because if you're not willing to make that move there, it's an interesting. They are definitely going to be open for business there. Though I will say I did get Jalen Carter going 3rd at 20-1 odds. Just because the price was just too good at that point in case they couldn't trade it. I have a feeling they would go Anderson there, but it was you can get top defensive player Jalen Carter's 4-1, third spot it's 20-1. So I figure it's worth the little extra there.
I've heard from a few different people who I know they do have some connections that there's stuff about Jalen Carter that teams are aware of that hasn't been made public, and they're like, there is no way this guy's being drafted that high because it's like personal character stuff that nobody knows about. But the teams are aware of it. But then you also have Drew Rosenhaus, his agent, who came out and said that he's not going to be entertaining visits from any team outside the top 10.
Yep.
Which is just a very bizarre decision to make because number one, teams that are outside the top 10 can trade into the top 10. And then eventually, like if you're drafted, eventually you're going to end, your rookie contract is going to end, and you're going to need to sign with a team, and you may not sign with the team that drafted you. So then you're going to have 2/3 of the league who you wouldn't even entertain with a pre-draft visit. It just seems like a very bizarre move.
That's just got to be some Rosenhaus bullshit to get attention. Like that's right. That's got to be an attention grab.
I don't think so because teams outside the top 10 would say, no, that's bullshit. We talked to him yesterday. So I think that could be true that he's not taking interviews with any teams outside the top 10. But I think that's either you got to understand, like, and I think that this crowd definitely does.
That's what I meant. Like, it's a gimmick. It's not a like he may be actually doing that, but that doesn't mean
the layers of smoke and mirrors at this point is peaking. I mean, the amount of bullshit and gamesmanship and, kind of doing sly shit and getting word out there about character issues and things like that. This is perfect draft fodder. And it could also be that the Philadelphia Eagles have basically said, look, Jalen, if you were there at 10, we are taking you. And he goes, okay, that's it. I don't need to talk to anybody behind 10. So now it sounds a little more selfish and self-righteous that the agent is out there boasting, we're not even talking to anybody outside the top 10. Fuck y'all. And no matter what, he's increasing, I guess, the desire to maybe get Jalen by saying he's now more exclusive. So maybe that will force some teams to bounce up to the top 10.
That's
or
what
if
I'm
none of
saying.
that, no matter what.
That's a Rosenhaus slapping his dick on the table and being like, here we go. Like, this is what we're doing.
And I think with an agent, that's what you want your agent to do. Be like, get me the most fucking money. And if you happen to make it entertaining, then, everybody's here for it. I see nothing wrong with it. I can totally get the surface level, oh my God, that's so brash of a guy who's facing all these issues. And it's like, this is wrestling, man. This is kayfabe city. Like, we are bullshitting everyone and anyone and even those who aren't paying attention. I'm here for it.
That's what makes the draft fun.
Good use of kayfabe.
I'll say that I think that the Colts and Lamar Jackson situation is probably the same as the Jets and Aaron Rodgers, where the Colts want Lamar and the Ravens want 2023 draft compensation. And the Colts don't want to give up their first round pick this year because it's the fourth overall pick. They would very happily give up next year's first round pick, which presumably with Lamar Jackson is going to be pretty low. But then the Ravens are like, well, we don't want that first round pick. We want this first round pick so we can trade Lamar Jackson and then replace him with another rookie quarterback.
So out of Rodgers and Lamar, out of those two, which one, and that's the only option here, which one do you think is on a football team before the draft?
Rodgers.
Yeah.
Rodgers.
I think Lamar is still a Raven after.
Team?
I still think Lamar is a Raven after the draft, and the likelihood of him playing for the Ravens this year is still very much in play. I'm losing faith with each passing day that he's even not going to be a Raven. I just don't think anybody's going to touch it.
Was it that non-exclusive tag they put on him? And doesn't that entail that they would get at least at least this year's first round pick, correct? Or
so you can sign the contract offer after the draft. So you could set it up in an advantageous situation where you give up two picks. Those two picks could not hit until 2024, 2025, where Jackson's. I think the team to watch there would actually be Washington because you're going to get a new owner come May, and so that could be a kind of interesting dynamic there with Washington on that one. But it almost got to get to. I fear that increasing Lamar Jackson's someone who's totally being hijacked by labor activists.
Yeah,
and so he's been totally sold like a bad set of goods on what his actual value is. I'm sorry, it's labor doesn't run the league, capital runs the league.
Yeah.
And so you could get this dynamic where Lamar Jackson could take on a social justice stance and literally try to pull Le'Veon Bell at this point. That wouldn't surprise me given all the moves at this point. So I kind of feel like if you're the Ravens, you almost have to draft Stetson Bennett in the fourth round.
Yeah.
Because you're installing a new offense with Todd Monken. Todd Monken literally has no quarterback on the market that has played for him in the league. That's not on a team right now. You've got Nick Mullins back in his Southern Miss days. He's the backup for I want to say the Vikings, something like that.
Yeah.
You've got no Todd Monken. It seems to me if you are the Ravens, you have to prioritize getting Stetson Bennett in the middle round just so that you have a quarterback that knows Todd Monken's system, just to help you install an offense while you wait around. Because like best case scenario, let's say they do get Lamar, that's not going to handle itself out until like preseason.
Yeah.
And so you're going to be sitting around like trying to install an offense with Pro Bowl Tyler Huntley. And, you know, like you're going to need a few other players there. And so Stetson Bennett, Baltimore Ravens, put it down.
I couldn't agree more. I think that's the most rational thing. And I don't know if rational things exist in the NFL draft, but if they do, that one I think is probably the most assured reality that could happen. Have y'all heard, and I haven't verified this because I just repeat things that I hear, the price, or not the price, but the earnings difference between Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson? It's like, I think it's either $50 or $80 million in Josh Allen's favor because
systematic racism.
I mean, obviously, you know, you got to get that certain type of agent to make the most money, but do that with, you know, whatever. But it's literally the argument is that he's getting penalized for just not having an agent, and nobody wants to deal with a player represented player that doesn't know the business, turns down options and opportunities that he's incapable of seeing the possible upside because he wants guaranteed money. The Deshaun Watson contract with Cleveland has ruined, in my opinion, and I think it was inevitable. What, like 10 years ago or 12 years ago, whenever it was, the Falcons signed Michael Vick to a 10-year, $100 million contract, and that was absurd. And I think only like 70 of it was guaranteed. And even that was like, dude, 70% of a contract is guaranteed. What the fuck are y'all doing, Falcons? That would be laughable now. Like I was looking back through some things before we started tonight, and I was like, hey, what did Deion Sanders leave the Falcons for? Obviously, he wanted to win a Super Bowl, but he left the Falcons as a free agent in 1994 after the 93 season and signed with San Francisco, 1-year deal, $1.2 million contract, I believe. And yes, that was low for even then, but now we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars with hundreds of millions guaranteed is the expectation. It's gone absolutely full-blown retard, and the market has to come back down to reality, in my opinion, because Cleveland's bad business should not have this ripple effect to where top-tier talent, just because they're financially stupid, are holding up 5 different teams in the NFL. Like, I'm personally not a fan of that because I don't see the Lamar drama as entertainment.
See,
I see it more as a hindrance.
So coming from a background in agriculture and land appraisal and stuff like that, financial retardation breeds more financial retardation. Even though the market says it shouldn't, it always does. And once you start going down that road, you never stop going down that road. There's land back home in Kentucky in the middle of fucking nowhere that just sold for $8,000 an acre that should never go for more than $4,500, period. But financial retardation breeds more financial retardation. And in the NFL, where they effectively, even for the hits that they've taken ratings wise and some of the other stuff, it is still a wildly popular league. And so they effectively run their own print and they can just do it. They're not gonna come back down. Like, it's going to keep going, and it's gonna get worse until it creates such a like a money vacuum that it does finally wreck a team, like completely financially wreck a team, where the league has to come in and just bail somebody out entirely. Until that happens, it's going to keep getting worse, probably.
So is this the NFL version of Gresham's Law?
Yeah. Well, of Cantillon effects, like the higher league, the higher cap, more money in the system.
Is that the same thing as we will stay retarded longer than you can be solvent, or is that just the LP?
Well, the issue is, I would argue that the size of the contract isn't retarded. Like that is just a simple reflection of the profits of the league going up. The salary cap follows with it. And so the quarterback contract relative to the salary cap is what matters more than the actual dollars. The issue is the guaranteed money.
Mhm.
And so what's interesting is that after the Watson deal, you've had two other major I think you've actually had three major quarterback deals done, which was Kyler Murray, which was a bad contract, but fine. I mean, but that was 82% guaranteed. But again, not 100%. Russell Wilson, which had 66% guaranteed, which looks like obviously an awful deal now. You had Aaron Rodgers, which was kind of quirky because it was kind of built to facilitate trades down the line. So that's not really kind of a contract to throw in the comparisons. But like the league was just never going to allow another contract to be fully guaranteed because it's not like the tragedy from Lamar. Like as someone who likes Lamar Jackson, like obviously not the brightest tool in the shed. I mean, based off of everything he's doing, I mean, just absolutely insane.
I turned down 3 years, 133 million guaranteed, and they say
that's a starting spot. Like I think he deserves more money than that, honestly, relative to the other contracts in the world. But like you start with that as a contract. If you want fully guaranteed money, like you've got to do a 3-year deal. If he would have simply signed a 5-year deal, he would have made all his money anyway.
Yeah.
Like you don't get rid of quarterback. I mean, unless he completely fell off injury related, which I get what his insurance thing is. But if he had signed the Josh Allen deal 3 years ago, he'd be perfectly fine. Like they would still have that deal. Like they're trying to get in a long-term contract with Lamar Jackson. He's just getting so fixated on like what the issue is. The athletes are talking about themselves, saying, "Golly gosh darn, it's so unfair that the NFL doesn't have NBA style guaranteed contracts." It's like that's what they're being told that by the union. They're being told that by a bunch of morons that don't know that are using it for their own editorial purposes. So they're trying to take some sort of great labor stand, and like they're gonna get run over because like the league doesn't need Lamar Jackson. Like teams would rather give up a 2% better chance of winning the Super Bowl than screwing up the entire business model of the league. So like he's getting completely railroaded by bad faith actors that are convincing him of something that the league was never going to let him do. And again, money-wise, he would have made the same exact money he wants anyway if he just, understood this. And this goes back to the agent thing. This goes back to all this sort of stuff. But the most underpaid player in professional sports right now is Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes making $45 million, and having Patrick Mahomes on your team is the biggest advantage that a team has to winning a championship in all of sports.
And didn't he just restructure his? I've heard a lot of quarterbacks restructuring their deals in this offseason so that the team can acquire talent.
Yeah, so what you do is so basically when you restructure a contract, your money becomes guaranteed. Like you turn it into a signing bonus, which they can't take back. That lowers your base salary the year of. That gives you more salary cap now in exchange for higher cap numbers in the future. Sometimes they'll add fake years to kind of help make that spread out. And so that's one of the reasons. Like one of the reasons why the Saints have been able to do what they do is that they are able, as long as you invest large contracts on players you don't want to get rid of. You can play this game all day long where you guarantee the money on the other side, and you get more cap now to make whatever push you want to do. So Matt Stafford now has 80% of his contract guaranteed because of the refinancing that they've done. They have not had to go to the bank of Mahomes yet. They have not had to refinance Patrick Mahomes' deals. Part of it's because they've drafted very well, particularly on the defensive side of things. But the Chiefs are an incredibly well-run organization right now because they by having Mahomes on a 10-year contract at $45 million a pop, it gave them tremendous flexibility with how they structured that. Again, it's a terrible deal for Mahomes. I mean, it's hard to feel bad for a guy that made half a billion dollars when he's 24 years old. Like, don't get me wrong, but like that is the best deal in all of sports right now. And eventually they're gonna upgrade it. They'll rewrite it fine. But it's given the Chiefs like they could still if the Chiefs wanted to. They could push back a whole bunch of money from Mahomes this year and sign a major free agent if they want. They still have a tremendous amount of flexibility. And so that's the issue. So the Texans, on the other hand, they've got very little flexibility. Like they're having to add on void years to Watson's contract. The Watson contract, I mean, that's the beauty of it, is that the Cleveland Browns are never, in my opinion, going to be a viable team as long as Deshaun Watson is their quarterback. Like for all of this, and Haslam deserves it. I mean, it's an awful franchise. I try to give them a bit of the doubt for a very long time. They deserve everything that's coming to them, but this deal has completely screwed them. So they have no flexibility.
Justin, can you see my screen share? Like, are you able to allow it? Yeah, there we go.
It is.
So this is Patrick Mahomes' contract. What's interesting about how they structured it is they put the bulk of the money in the roster bonuses.
Yeah.
So starting in 2022, he has massive roster bonuses each year, and that's where the bulk of the money comes from. So I think, I'm not a cap expert, but I know a little bit, and I'm pretty sure that you can't restructure a roster bonus. So I think that ultimately, before 2027, they actually can't really do much about his contract. I think they wouldn't actually be able to go to the bank of Mahomes, so to speak. So that might have been part of the trade-off that they had to make. It's just such a fascinating way to structure a contract that basically the fully guaranteed money was $63 million, and what was his signing? So prorated bonus. So it must have been like a $46 million signing bonus. And then the bulk of the salaries are going to come in roster bonuses. So at any point, if his play falls off, then they can cut him without being on the hook for a massive chunk of the remaining salary, because whether the roster bonus is going to count against the cap or not depends on it. Incentives are likely to be earned, and there's all kinds of different standards for what gets counted against the cap and what doesn't. But if he has a bad season, then basically it means that they're going to eat it on the chin for a year, maybe 2 years, and then they cut him loose and they're good to go. So he gets the security of knowing that he's going to get large, like at least $45 or $50 million a year until he's 36, as long as he's still playing acceptably. It's such a fascinating confluence of both a franchise being brilliant and flexible in the way that they structure it, and the player being really clear-eyed and reasonable about the type of contract he can get. And this is the problem with Lamar, that not having an agent, people frame this as like Lamar not having an agent is like to the NFL's benefit. And that Lamar not having an agent is to Lamar's benefit, and it's actually to the NFL's benefit, because him not having an agent means he's getting run circles around by the NFL and the team's representatives, because he's basically just kind of like adrift. I mean, I'm biased in this because I'm a buyer's agent. I'm an agent in my career. So I'm not a sports agent, obviously, a real estate agent, but I participate in agency relationships, and I understand the value that having an agent brings in negotiations and in making decisions, financial decisions. Lamar has just absolutely shot himself in the foot, and I think you're right, Tho, that he's being basically used as like a sacrificial lamb by labor activists, and he's going to wind up making maybe hundreds of millions of dollars less than he should have, because he had to do this pride thing about representing himself and not having to pay an agent's fee. It's like he doesn't want to pay agent's fees of a handful of millions of dollars, so he's going to cost himself hundreds of millions of dollars.
Just yet another victim of Bobby Petrino.
You saying the finance degree he got from U of L was not worth it?
Is
Could you
anything
spell
to get
finance, Mr. Jackson?
Louisville?
At U of L Business School, let him down. See, I think that's one of the things with representing yourself. Like, I think there are certain people who probably could represent themselves well, but like, not saying that it's necessarily an IQ thing. But
let's connect some of those dots, Justin. list some of the players you think they could represent themselves. Would they resemble a JJ
What sort
Watt,
of characteristics
perhaps?
do they have?
you know, like how many years of econ did they take? Like, how many years of accounting and finance did they take? Like, for underwater basket weaving is as a primary elective all 4 years is probably not going to get you very far into managing your own contract negotiations.
And even if you're a professional contract negotiator, it's often wise to have someone else represent you, because once you get involved in a negotiation, you start making decisions emotionally, and you could know exactly the best way to do things. You could be the smartest, most well-educated person on that. But if it's your own money and you're the one making the decision for yourself, you start making just kind of doing dumb, silly things, and it's just better to have someone else to outsource that to.
Well, look, I mean, even lawyers have lawyers, or better phrased, especially have, lawyers especially have lawyers because they understand the importance of it. If you waltz into a courtroom and you're like, well, I'm going to take my freedom into my own hands because I got some fucking brains up here, you are going to get maximum everything. You are so fucked before you even go, Yana. That's where Lamar is. And
I've represented myself before, and I spent a minimum of 2.5 hours with a legal consultant professional going through the whole thing before I represented myself. Like I had everything from him for what I was going to do with my representation. Like it wasn't anything that came out of my own noggin. It was
I've seen my cousin Vinny front to back. I can talk to you about tire tracks. Bring it, judge. And they're like, all right, fine. Let's make an example out of this guy. And I think that's what's happening with Lamar.
Well, the interesting thing too is that the Ravens earlier this offseason were able to do a deal with Raekwon Smith, like, who was representing himself. So like if you're a player wanting to work with a team, like the Ravens are a better team than most. Like it's they're a pretty professional franchise, and they don't try to overly screw over the players to the extent they can. Now, I mean, that just might be the difference between a Georgia degree and a Louisville degree right there. But
and one of the biggest issues with doing these fully guaranteed contracts, which my tinfoil hat theory here is that the NFL and the other owners actively facilitated the Browns giving that contract to Deshaun Watson precisely because they knew that it was going to be a tire fire and that it would then be the justification for no one else ever having to give out a contract like that. But the biggest issue is that when you give out like guaranteed money in contracts, the owners are required to put that money in escrow.
And so that's some 4D chess that I just don't think Jimmy Haslam is capable of.
Yeah, let's add the Cleveland Browns.
I'm saying he was victimized by the 4D chess.
Yeah.
I was going to say, let's add the Cleveland Browns as victim number 35.
Right.
Deshaun just raped the shit out of the Browns. Oh, Lord. Do they even have Asian masseuses? And anyway. Sorry.
If I had known this was the direction the show was going to go, I'd have just titled it Victim 35. And
there's literally the only reason why y'all don't kick me out of the group chat.
I'll say this about the Seahawks, that I'm beginning to really buy the Anthony Richardson hype. There was two significant instances while the Seahawks had Russ that Russ got upset because John Schneider was enamored with Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. And both of those were not like, years afterwards, oh, yeah, I really like that guy that turned into one of the best players in the league. They were both like headlines at the time that it happened, that he attended both of their pro days and was very interested in them. And the Seahawks chose not to pursue those avenues because it seems like because they didn't want to step on Russ's toes. Now, the situation and John Schneider has said since then that was a mistake. It was a mistake that they haven't drafted other quarterbacks all along. I think they might have had one quarterback I think that they drafted other than Russ, and that was his name was Magoo.
Yeah,
I can't remember. Alex Magoo, I think.
Yeah,
imposter.
He was like from like Florida International or something like that.
Also, can I buy his jersey?
South Georgia.
Yeah, I think it's spelled MC capital GOUGH.
He's a fucking Irishman. Fuck that. Sorry, Jay Forte.
So, so I think that going forward, I don't think they're going to make that same mistake again. And especially with Geno, obviously everyone's aware of Geno's contract and everything. And multiple times Geno has talked about, he's been asked or he talked about having another quarterback there. And he's said he's not going to go, who was it? Was it Matt Ryan? Who was like, someone asked him, like, is it your job to like mentor the younger guy? And he's basically like, fuck the younger guy. Like, he's a competitor for my job. He can go fuck himself.
I think Favre
Geno
said that too.
Yeah, there's been multiple people. There was someone recently, and I want to say it was. It might have been Carson Wentz, like, same kind of thing. But Gino has said the opposite. He's like, no, man. Like, he's like, if it's my job to mentor the next guy, then I'm going to mentor the next guy, and I have no problem with that. So signing Drew Lock to a 1-year, $4 million deal is not going to prevent them from taking a quarterback, and I think that they're going to be pretty enamored with Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, I've got money with the Seahawks taking both Richardson and Hooker. Hooker got 10-1 odds.
Yep.
And Hooker, I think Seahawks are a team where I think Hooker makes sense. You're not expecting him to play necessarily year one. That lets him recuperate his ACL. I mean, he is an older guy. I would not take Hendon Hooker. Like I would take Stetson Bennett over Hooker straight up, same capital, just because like I don't trust that offense.
Where would you place Hooker versus Bennett, and where do you think Hooker goes? Like, I wouldn't take Hooker above third round, but like,
Hooker scares me just because of the offense and everything else with him. But the NFL apparently loves him. Like, I mean, he's being worked in right now at the back end of first rounds by people like Daniel Jeremiah. You know, and he's supposed to be killing it in terms of interviews. He's got a lot of physical tools. Like I'm convinced myself that the NFL thinks more of him than I do. But I think the Seahawks, just as a situation, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, he was my preseason Heisman pick, and I kind of tracked him most of the season. He was a phenomenal quarterback right up to the point that he got hurt. Again, like the system has been cited multiple times, but I mean, very, very good quarterback. Like where Will Levis is the guy that you like don't want throwing the ball. Hooker is the guy that you do want throwing the ball. Like, he's not going to make a lot of those like really dumb, boneheaded mistakes that like Levis would make. So like I did really like him as a quarterback. The injury and like that's the bigger concern for me, and that's why I kind of think like not above third round, just because like you don't want that much capital in a guy that, you know, a year and a half from now. You know, you expect that he's coming back and he's going to be fine, but then at the same time, are you going to roll the dice on a late first rounder that doesn't come back at 100%, and then you're stuck with a career backup probably? Like,
yeah, to me, Hendon Hooker, you only want him throwing the ball. You don't want him scrambling, in my opinion. Every time I saw the boy scramble, or young man, whatever, his legs just looked discombobulated. Like, it looked like the play where RG3 got his career-ending injury every time he ran out of the pocket. It looked like Bambi out there, just legs going in different directions. He does not look athletic. When he runs, whether it's side to side or north and south, you don't feel confident that this isn't going to end in tragedy. Like, whether his ankles or knees or hips blow, it's just like that kid does not have. He doesn't strike you as like, holy shit, the athleticism. It's the arm and that janky offensive scheme they run in Knoxville. Like, I have not, and he's not young. He's old as shit.
He needs a good like Peyton Manning type of mentor to teach him how to, like, if the pocket is collapsing on you, go down without actually getting hit and like live to see the next play instead of trying to like run off and do something stupid and then break, you know, every bone in your legs.
Yeah. I mean, if you go back and watch the Tennessee-South Carolina game where he got injured. Now, sure, it's South Carolina and Columbia has the shittiest field in the SEC. But if you watch how he was scrambling that entire game, you just saw this like, I have no faith. I had no faith. Him busting his ACL and PCL and everything else was the least surprising thing as an outcome of that game. I don't know. I'm much harsher on Hendon Hooker as far as an overall athlete. Just like I'm just as harsh against Richardson as far as being a good quarterback. Is he talented? Undoubted. Like, if you could combine those two players, you would have something. You would have a number one overall pick unquestioned. But you're missing a lot in both as far as like a high level draft pick. And I think that just speaks more so to the lack of actual players in this year's draft. I think if you're wanting to make a defense better, this is the year. But if you're hoping to turn your offense around, you're gonna have to wait a year.
Waldman has Hooker as his QB 10, Matt.
Interesting. Where does he have Richardson?
Richardson is QB 1.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
But no matter what,
Matt.
if you're looking to turn your offense around, you're gonna have to wait a few years, even if you choose Richardson now, because there's not a single fucking thing. Even that clip of what he did in the LSU game, and it's like, I think it was Orlovsky. Matt, you shared it, I believe, where it was like Orlovsky said, and these guys want to, question this. Well, if you look at his stats in that game, it was pathetic. It was dog shit. It was less than 200 yards, no touchdowns, I think 2 interceptions. It was nothing to inspire confidence in any team because he makes one over, crossing the middle completion. I watched him week in, week out because I fucking hate the Florida Gators with as much fiery passion as capable of in a sports fan. And so I'm going to shit on him harder than any rational person. So take everything I'm about to say with a grain of salt. But he didn't do anything other than beat Utah and his entire time at Florida that made me go, maybe there's something there. We've seen it time and time again where a guy just busts out at the combine and like breaks records and does crazy shit. And that does not, more times than not, that does not transfer to a field of play. And so the measurables to me mean nothing. I need to see the capability of doing it at some point. And Richardson has never shown me that.
Well, the case for Richardson is kind of basically that the offensive scheme sucked, the players around him sucked, and that like there's nuances to his game that actually will translate. And so I had the same opinion watching him. Like I was never a gee whiz by Richardson outside of some moments in that Utah game, but I am willing to embrace the narrative that UF was so bad that Napier is such a coach out of his depth. That even with a Cam Newton style player, they couldn't make a bowl game. I think that is a possible outcome there.
It's funny. Matt Miller from Bleacher Report tweeted a couple weeks ago that he's like, I don't know why, but every time I watch the Tennessee offense, I just keep seeing the Seahawks offense. And he said he's all the Seahawks player, although the Tennessee players seem like they would fit well with the Seahawks. And he named specifically Hendon Hooker, Tillman, and Jalen Hyatt. I think that Jalen Hyatt is probably very high on the Seahawks board. And another Seahawks draft guy that I follow, he and I, back when I was actually doing scouting, writing for Bleacher Report and a couple other places, he and I were really early talking about Aaron Donald. We were both like, this guy is just... Because what's funny, Aaron Donald was not... I'll do a little segue here. Aaron Donald was not a top prospect until... like the week of the draft. The week of the draft was like the first time they started really talking about him in the first round. Prior to that, he was like an undersized defensive tackle, probably third rounder, and we were both like, this is the best defensive line prospect in the draft by far. And it was like right at the very end of the draft, he shot way up and then ended up going like 12th, I think, or something like that. Anyway, so this guy says, he tweeted this recently. He said, the idea that Tennessee was good because their wide receiver splits are wider than normal is so epically stupid to me. They weren't running the Mike Leach spread. Leach's actual offense was number 111 in yards per attempt at 6.4. Tennessee was number 1 at 10.0. Big boy throws. Tennessee was also number 26 in rushing yards per game. Mississippi State was number 100. Tennessee was number 28 in rush attempts per game and number 57 in pass attempts per game. This is not the same spread idea. He said, I bet Pete Carroll loves this concept. It's balanced but leans toward the run, augmented by explosive passing game. That's the Pete Carroll ideal offense, is balanced, leaning more toward the run, but has an explosive passing game. Explosive plays are the big thing to him, the big thing that they track, giving up and gaining explosive plays. He said Tennessee's not crazy in terms of straight explosive passing plays, which I think explosive passing play is anything over 16 yards, and explosive run is anything over 12 yards, I think. I know explosive runs mean something different to you, Jim, but
it means a bad Tuesday.
So they're Tennessee's not crazy in terms of straight explosive passing plays because they're basically dead middle in terms of pass rate. So they end up at number 19 in explosive passes of 20 or more, but they were number 1 in the country if you did 30-plus yard passes. So and it's such an efficient offense. Pete's all about the ball. His turnovers is another big thing for him. And Tennessee was number 9 nationally in turnovers and number 11 in total turnover margin. And then with someone else, I couldn't find this other thread, but I saw someone else musing about the Tennessee offense and the Seahawks and some of the things that Tennessee has been doing that seem to kind of blend different. It has that Mike Leach aspect to it, but then it's more balanced between the run and the pass, and we're seeing this resurgence of the running game now. As you've got a lot of teams that are playing cover 2 to defend against the Josh Allens and Joe Burrows and Patrick Mahomes. Well, because of that, now you're getting way more running again because you've got lighter boxes. So the running game is increasing in importance. Anyways, yeah, all of that is to say, I think that, first of all, I think that Hendon Hooker is probably going to get drafted higher than people expect, because I think that the wonkiness of the Tennessee offense is actually going to lend itself more to the NFL than people realize. And I do think that the Seahawks are either going to draft Anthony Richardson at 5 or Hendon Hooker at 20. I think one of those two is likely going to happen for them. And I think it wouldn't be necessarily the best use of assets, but goddamn, if they drafted Anthony Richardson and Bijan Robinson together, that would just be the most fun thing in the world.
Yeah.
And you can currently get Seahawks winning the NFC, which I think is right now their conference bet right now. So Vaughn, you can still get the Seahawks getting Hooker at 10-1, which I still really like.
Yeah.
But they you can get as conference favorites. They're now at 20-1, which is the same as the Bears.
Seriously?
And, yeah. Underneath, yeah. Like they're incredibly mispriced. I got some exposure at 25-1 a few weeks ago, just because I saw that and I thought it was
That's
absolutely
insane. I mean, I'm not like massively high on them, but I mean,
But it's the NFC. Anything can happen in the NFC.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't see how you could conceivably make the case that they aren't a top 5 team in the NFC. They've got a top 5 quarterback because there aren't any other quarterbacks in the NFC.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And I'm kind of quietly very, very high on Geno going into year 2.
He played great.
He was
Played big ball boy.
statistically, it was crazy. If you look at, especially if you get in some advanced statistics with the quarterback play, there was him and one other quarterback whose stats were almost identical.
It
throughout
was
the season.
hold on. It was I think it was Josh. No. It was Cincinnati Bengals.
Yes.
Burrow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Burrow and Geno were almost identical throughout
Yeah.
the year. And the other interesting point, it was their 3rd year as a starting quarterback for both of them. There was just a big gap in the middle for but I think you can't necessarily, if I put my Seahawks homer hat on for a minute here, I think you can't necessarily underestimate the value of real live NFL reps for an entire season for someone like Geno. And he said that himself. He tweeted something right after the season. He was like, I think he said, he says, now that I got those live on-field reps, just you wait until next year. That he's actually got real tape on himself to go over. The dude has just been, as he's been making the interview rounds and talking to the team and like all the comments and stuff that he's made.
Well, I'm like, how much do you
saying-
count his years with the Jets? Because he was always like it was always game to game. Like, are they going to pull Geno? Like, how long is the rope that they're going to give him to hang himself? Like,
well, you know what's crazy is that in that time when he was there, he was like, I want to say he was like top 10 or top 12 in the league in EPA per play. So on a per play basis, he was actually very good. He was high in big time throw percentage and stuff as well. What you're looking at is a quarterback who was drafted in the 2nd round, went to West Virginia, and was playing under Rex Ryan. So like, it's tough. It's just tough to evaluate any quarterback in those kind of situations. And then you've got the New York media, and you've got the Jets being a cursed franchise. You got all that kind of stuff piling on it. that
and he had the training camp punch.
Right. Was
Training
it
camp fight,
like IJ Nkapali or whatever the guy's name was? He got his jaw broken, and then he just went and proceeded to play backup to Eli Manning, Phillip Rivers, and Russell Wilson for 6 years. So he's done all the stuff. Like he has said all the right things. He's done all the right things. So far, I think that last year was probably his floor. I think that he could be significantly better this year, because he's also got very low mileage. So the traits that he has that make him very good are traits that are projectable. His accuracy, his composure, his processing, his arm strength, all of those things are all very good. So, yeah, I think he's easily a top 5 quarterback in the NFC, which is a little bit of damning by faint praise. But I think that is it even possible to get Geno Smith MVP odds?
Yeah, you can get Geno Smith.
If there are odds,
66 to 1.
What is it?
66 to 1. Which for some reason it's the same as Kyler Murray, which I mean that one's not going to pay out. So.
Yeah, 66 to 1 was better odds than I was expecting it to be even longer than that.
Yeah, 66 to 1, which puts it right with Jimmy Garoppolo, Kirk Cousins, Kyler Murray, Geno Smith tier, underneath Daniel Jones and Kenny Pickett.
Kenny Pickett has better MVP odds than Geno Smith.
So yeah, Kenny Pickett is 50 to 1, and Geno Smith is 66 to 1.
Where's Desmond Ridder? Is he even on that list?
You can get 100 to 1.
Oh, shit. Don't pay attention
to some other long shots. One of my favorites, and this kind of goes directly against the Seahawks point in a way, but Coach of the Year, you can get Sean McVay at 33 to 1 odds right now, which is almost the bare bottom of the barrel. Yet the division odds for the Rams are at plus 475, and their conference odds are better than the Seahawks. Yeah, 18 to 1. And so, like, if the Rams are win the division, like McVay is totally set up with a narrative of like comeback player of the year, like, oh, he was so exhausted last year, and his wife was from Ukraine, and he was worried about that.
Oh,
and they had to give up all this talent, and now whether or not they're talented, I have a feeling it's going to be a team that's really, really bad on defense. They're going to play shootouts with see if Matt Stafford's actually healthy or not. But just in the way that that they are valuing the Rams' potential everywhere else, McVay is vastly is very poorly priced at 33 to 1.
Here's what. Now I'm not a big betting guy. I don't intuitively just grasp what odds mean and stuff, but like 33 to 1, and he's 1 out of 32. What, like,
pretty bad, eh?
Like, isn't that kind of like by default his odds are 33 to 1?
They're saying he shouldn't have this job anymore.
The odds are yeah. Well, so he's in the same category. Like he's in the same category as McDaniels and Vrabel and Belichick and Dayball, which he's down there just because you very rarely do you win it back to back. Stefanski, McCarthy, Rivera, McDermott, and Bowles are all higher shots there. The favorite is Sean Payton, followed by the Bears head coach Dan Campbell
for coach of the year
coach of the year.
Yeah, I can see that.
Where's Andy Reid?
Reid's down and like a 28 to 1, so he's kind of he's.
Is it just a given? Like, well, we already know he's the best.
Yeah, you kind of it's kind of like the baseline. Yeah.
Okay.
Coach of the year odds are who would I be most surprised by?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is how I interpret it. That's why it's like if the Falcons win 12 games, Arthur Smith is coach of the year. Like that's
who
has like, the worst odds?
If they expect you to win 12, 13 games and you win 12 or 13 games, unless everybody else in the league just completely sucks, you're probably not going to win it. Like they're going to give it to somebody that overperforms for what they were, what their expectation was. Like
It's the opposite of the guy on the Chargers.
Yeah,
underperformer.
But Todd Bowles is at 75-1, so he has the highest payout of the
Interesting.
Come on, Baker. The fucking Bucks. I'm glad
the comeback player of the year awards are Hamlin is the favorite for comeback player. You can't even get even odds for that. So yeah, I mean if he plays, then
all he has to do is live.
Yeah,
and he's going to get the comeback player of the year. Like this isn't even.
Kind of wish he hadn't. Oh, I probably shouldn't say that.
Oh, so you think he did?
Damn it, you got me.
I thought I took us in a
real.
direction that was all right. Woo-hoo, I'm saved. Thanks, Matt.
Hold up. What's the draft is in what, 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
What's the date?
20 days, 22 hours, 4 minutes, and 23, 22, 21, 20, 19.
Keep going until
I'm
it
putting
gets
that in
here.
about 18 days.
Leave the stream up.
We're about 18 days out from his car accident that he doesn't survive.
So it's the last weekend of April?
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Any interest in doing a live draft watch along so we can
That'd be pretty fun.
say what a stupid pick that was, or oh my god, the Jaguars just busted into the top 10 and are getting Jalen Carter, and boy doesn't he wish he interviewed with him.
So Friday night. I could
Yeah.
probably do that.
28th, is that the first round?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, first round is only done in the first night, so all the fun talkable stuff will be, in that first primetime evening.
I know. First round is on Thursday. Second. First round is on Thursday.
Yeah,
Round
Thursday,
on
Friday,
Friday. 4 through 7 are on Saturday.
Yeah.
But I am available that Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, so we can do this.
I am.
I could probably jump in for a little window. Yeah, I'll probably jump. I usually I've got day 1 and day 2 parties with different folks, but I can jump in for a window.
Yeah.
I've got my whole draft day routine. Like it's my least productive work day of the year. Like I'm smoking meat all day for the thing. I'm constantly pacing around for trying to figure out how much money I've put down after 3 months of betting.
The draft day is the day of the draft is Tho's Super Bowl.
Oh yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, we could get the stream going like an hour before the draft starts.
Yeah,
and just come in and BS. People go in and out.
That would be
That'd
cool.
be fun.
Heck yeah. Well, we've got a plan for the draft. And there's a few weeks of opportunity for chit chat between now and then. So if anybody wants to get together the next couple weeks, I'm actually off the next 3 Thursday nights. So we can do this all the way up to the draft if y'all would like. And that'll give the few people who have stuck with us through me and Mark talking about March Madness for a few weeks and our brief hiatuses.
Thanks, Jay.
Real MVPs.
Mark Madness.
Well, only if Rodgers and Lamar's situations come, to a conclusion, which one of Lamar's I don't think will before the draft. I think they're pretty much done in free agency. I mean, has any player been signed in the last 7 days or 10 days?
Yeah, Hoyer, bro.
Nope. Oh, sorry.
Some
Nope.
roster guys.
Jeez, you didn't even know that the Seahawks re-signed Montgomery. You idiot.
The Bears.
Oh, no, I mean the Bears.
The Lions.
I didn't
The
know.
Lions.
Yes.
No, I didn't know.
Idiots.
I didn't know the Seahawks had a guy that had a last name that, even though it's spelled incorrectly, sounded like Magoo. That's what I've come to know.
Actually,
Other
there's some
than
big news here. Free agent tight end Nick Boyle worked out for teams at the Maryland Pro Day.
We are.
So someone's got to hang on and keep track of the Nick Boyle rumors.
I'm not on that.
Hey, I got a question, Magoo.
Yes.
Prior, I guess the last time we all spoke, this was, I think, pre-Super Bowl. You were kind of up on the idea of Lamar coming down to Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
Now, yes or no? Not if you think it will happen. Do you want it?
No.
based on what you know it will cost.
Yes, like just from a talent standpoint and butts and seats before we made any free agency moves, it was like that's something we need. We need something to energize the fan base. Will it immediately put us in any level of like a positive number in the win column? Who knows? Our defense is so shitty that it was like it probably won't result in a difference in record, but it would energize the fan base. It would give us something to at least be entertained by. And I think that they completely captured that by the moves they made on defense that I actually do think will lead to 2, maybe 3 additional wins, which will put us in the 9 to 10 win range.
Are you saying you'd rather have Calais Campbell than Lamar Jackson?
Hey, all I said was that, a Raven leaving Baltimore to come to Atlanta would really turn around this team.
Yeah.
And that was fulfilled. I'm good.
He's cheaper.
Really, it came out when, and I think I shared this in the group chat, when Lamar was boasting at how he turned down the 3-year, $133 million guaranteed and thought that was some level of own. I was like, holy shit. Thank God the Falcons are not in the Lamar hunt. Because I don't want a guy like that.
Nicely done. Lamar Hunt. I like it.
Yes. I don't want a guy like that in my locker room. I would rather have a Calais Campbell type in my locker room. And here's the thing. I think that this year's quarterback class is shit. I think there's 2 good quarterbacks that you could have any hope in the next year or 2 becoming something. I think everything else will have to wait. And because we're not in that ballpark, we're not in that market, we have to ride with Ritter. Tyler Heineke, I think, is a solid backup that could possibly come in and even outperform. So I have no illusions of grandeur of a playoff run, much less a deep playoff run. I think we'll make the playoffs because we win the NFC South. I think we lose immediately. And then I think we get better at quarterback later. But right now, you're putting the pillars for a strong foundation, which are now all there, in my opinion. You have your offensive line is solidified. Your defense is getting a million times better already. One more full seasonal loop, I think that you're a quarterback away from really fucking up at least the NFC, which I don't know what that's saying, but I'm totally fine not with Lamar at this point.
See, the problem is, though, is the Falcons are going to find themselves in a situation where, like, they go, let's say they win the NFC South. Then, so next year you're going to be in just a situation to not be able to draft a quarterback.
The purgatory. That's where Derek Carr kept.
See, and that's like I would have loved to see the Falcons like make that move. Just like their team, like one of the arguments against Lamar is just like you need a specific sort of set of skills. Like you need big players, you need like tight ends. You're not going to run traditional offense, but the Falcons are like perfect made for that. I would have loved to see like so they'll probably end up like a Tannehill, right? Or I mean, unless there are some interesting like some interesting quarterbacks that maybe you can develop and maybe Ritter ends up being a lot better. But like it's that's kind of the frustrating thing though. Is like when you're trying to figure out like where do you place that quarterback, like there is the argument for building the pillars, but like then it's just so hard to get it. Like the Panthers really lucked out. Like I think the Panthers are a team I'm really interested by right now, only because like they had a roster last year that was obviously better than like its win record because of its post rule performance. They were aggressive to make that jump up to 1. They're finally gonna get a quarterback there. They've got a really good coaching staff. Like it's a finally an owner kind of recognizes the competitive advantage you can get by just like splurging on coaching contracts, which don't have a salary cap. And that's the one where I'm really interested to see just how quickly you can turn around there, because like it's going to be difficult to start. Like the Daniel Jones contract, and it's like some of these like you have your elite tier, and then you've got like the people that you're paying as elite tier that are really kind of like middle class quarterbacks. And that's like Wilson and Murray. I mean, I think Watson fills that role. I mean, Prescott, Jones, Stafford at this point. Like it's going to be interesting to see how whether or not you have a kind of a new generation. We're dealing with some of the big young quarterbacks getting second contracts now with Lawrence and Burrow. You're going to have like a whole new generation of the teams that can kind of play around with that extra salary cap money. It's going to be interesting to see like just how teams are able to line themselves up to be able to get that when they're kind of in that mid tier. Because the Falcons are a really interesting team. Outside of my less than optimistic views on Ritter, but maybe maybe that's where they hit.
I think with the offensive scheme that Arthur Smith is going to run, where the Falcons were, I think, top 2 in rushing, you take the weight off the quarterback. So they immediately devalue the importance of that position. It's not a ride or die. Like, oh shit, as soon as our quarterback goes down, our entire season plans are fucked. I think literally any quarterback can come in and find some level of success in that, which is why Tannehill looked the way he did when Arthur Smith was there. And now he doesn't. I think it's so not important who the quarterback is in his system that there's no doubt if we had Lamar, just based on the talent level, I would immediately expect us to be in the NFC Championship game, coupled with the defensive moves that we made this year. But to go from a 7-win team to NFC Championship goals, I have been burned too many times to even put myself in that real estate. And so I'm totally fine with not having Lamar. And Ritter only had 4 games last year, and they almost fucked him up forever by having his first career start be on the road at a division rival who was better than us in New Orleans. To build any level of confidence and not have him start at home is ludicrous. You're almost saying, let's really put him to the test and see if he just quits, because we suck and we're going to start him on the road in hostile waters.
It's like boot camp.
Yeah. And, sure, he played against Tampa in Tom Brady's last game, and he threw 2 touchdowns, no picks. It was the only 2 touchdowns he had all year, but they weren't asking him to do anything. I would like to see what it looks like. Okay, you got 4 games of live action shots. You got a full off season. You know that you're the guy going into the season, and you have 17 games to prove what you are. I don't think we'll be any worse than we were last year. I think we're a 2-win differential in the positive just based on talent, and throw a few more wins our way that we don't deserve, which should happen because we're in a shit division. Anything can happen.
Yeah.
I think if you're wanting to maximize his value as an asset just in general, I was thinking that like Mac Jones would be a really interesting person there.
Yeah.
If
apparently he's up for grabs.
Right. Rumors are the Patriots were shopping him around. But
it's okay. He's going to end up in the Raiders, so that's okay.
That was the first thing I thought when I read that rumor.
Yep.
But the thing is, like, if you brought in someone like Mac Jones, then you're basically just punting on Ritter, and you're just saying that your 3rd round pick that you made is you're just punting him right away. I think with someone like him, you either have to move on from him or you have to give him a season to take the starting job by the horns and run with it. And if over the course of this season he's bad, then you wind up in a position to draft his replacement. So I think it's wise for the Falcons if they just put all their eggs in the Ritter basket for this year. And as long as the front office has the go ahead from the ownership that this is the route that we're going to take, we're going to go all in on Ritter. If he sucks, then we're going to be in position to draft like Caleb Williams or something. Then I think that's how I would go about building it. Bringing in someone else who's kind of like, who's maybe a marginal upgrade or who's not going to be a clear, like a Lamar. Like if you're a guy you build your franchise around, then you do that. But if you're not going to get someone like him, then there's no reason to add a marginal upgrade. Like I think Mac Jones would be a better quarterback than Desmond Ritter, but you're going to have to trade capital for Mac Jones, and then you're also going to be punting on your 3rd round quarterback, and so all of that together makes it too expensive to me.
Yeah, and really, if you think about it, I mean, we have Drake London, which will be, I think, more than serviceable. Kyle Pitts is coming back; he'll be healthy. If we ever utilize his ungodly talent that I've been told about. I mean, he was a 1,000-yard rookie tight end, so that's not nothing. Jonnu Smith, who is familiar with Arthur Smith's offensive scheme, I think only helps. He definitely doesn't hurt. Scotty Miller apparently is a little speedy guy that can blow off the top. I don't know. I really am not familiar with him. Matt Collins, I was impressed with in the times, where he played a decent amount in Las Vegas.
He was great.
I think if we just upgrade at either defensive tackle with Jalen Carter, if that's there, or edge rusher, and then we get a receiver out of Tennessee, preferably, I would be more than happy if we took a Tennessee receiver. Then I'm immediately on board with this team. I think that they're literally just those 2 draft picks and then build depth through the remainder of the draft, and I'm a happy Falcons fan.
That Jonnu Smith trade is one of my favorites. It's like that's going to open up what Pitts can do. I think a great deal. It's just interesting. It's like you see 2 very distinct sort of strategies here. It's like the Colts, I would kind of put in this box, even though they're different too because they've gone through coaches now. Is that it's just like you have some teams that kind of create their window for like a turnaround 2-3 years, and then there's some that are just kind of really patient and willing kind of building up everything and then have a quarterback fill it. I'm just going to be interested to see which of those models ends up being more consistently successful in the long run. Because you're going to always kind of hit a flyer, a weird year here and there. A Carson Wentz led team, made it to the Super Bowl even though he ended up playing it. But I'm interested to see which of those models ends up working better. Because you can see the argument where if you get 5 years of that rookie contract deal, then that's the only way that you can kind of make up for having that alpha at the position. If you get the 2 combined, it's even better. That would be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, what Ritter was able to do at Cincinnati, who the fuck were they 10 years ago, 5 years ago? I'm fine where we're at. I got no problem with that.
Are you going to the G-Day game?
I was thinking about it. That's next weekend, I think, next Saturday. I'll likely be recovering because my best buddy's band is playing the night before, and I likely won't be in any condition to be out in the sun the next day. I'll be hibernating. Also,
it's a 4 o'clock kickoff this time.
Yeah, well, I'm slow. Older I get, though. Older I get. But no, I'm getting a dog either that weekend or the weekend after. So I got a
bulldog.
No, a black lab. I used to have a black lab back all through college, and that's always the dog I've chosen. Last dog I had was a pit bull, but that was more of a rescue situation.
Get him from Vic?
Yeah, because I want mine to be able to kick ass.
Mm-hmm.
Home defense system, But no, I'm about to get a dog again. Fucking 85-pound puppy. So I gotta get this fucking place ready to have a house or to have a dog in it that's gonna chew everything. All these goddamn cables that are in here right now are all in jeopardy. So I gotta reconfigure everything.
Racks. Yeah.
So, but I will be watching G-Day on TV. Are you going?
I think my brother and I are gonna make the trip up.
There's a chance I could be there, but I just got a feeling that if Friday night goes the way I think it will, I won't be moving.
I guess.
Just start over the next day and meet up with Tho.
Yeah, just keep it going.
Yeah.
Challenge accepted. All right. You heard it here first, fans and folks and viewers and everybody else. I'll be in Athens.
We do have 4 tickets. So we 2 guys, 4 tickets. So we have some flexibility there.
Rock and roll. I've never been to a G-Day game. I've actually never seen them in the spring.
It's a good time.
Hell yeah.
Well, then I'm going to call it night on that note.
Me too, fellas.
This is fun.
Heck yeah,
This was
we'll
fun.
pick this back up over the next couple of weeks and then plan for a live draft viewing we get, with the way they've split the draft up now, we get 3 days of draft action. So we can
It's
do
like WrestleMania.
We can do all kinds of round robin draft action. Thank you everybody for joining us. Guys, this has been a blast. I'm not going to close it on the March Madness outro that Mark and I have been using. We'll just let it end with this, and we will see everybody next week.
All right. See you guys next week.
Yes.